Hello and welcome to 10 Minute Tabletop. I'm Devin.
And I'm Darren.
And here are the 3 biggest stories from Tabletop in 10 minutes or less so you can back to playing the game. First up, Hasbro's E1, their entertainment branch of the company, has announced their own streaming platform.
Yes, they're going to be launching a 24-hour streaming channel. 24 hours, you heard that right.
Completely dedicated to Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, it's going to be an ad-supported channel, so you can't get it without ads, unfortunately, but it is going to be free, which is kind of, maybe a selling point in today's, streaming wars thing. So
It's going to be called Dungeons & Dragons Adventures Fast, which is FAST stands for Free Ad-Supported TV, which is such a stupid fucking name. That's the stupidest name. I'm sorry.
Get it fast, zoom.
But it will feature original celebrity-created content, third-party creators, a lot of unscripted content, Heroes Feast, which is the book you have.
Yes, it's a cooking book that features all kind of Dungeons and Dragonese and also world-specific.
So there's going to be a little cooking show there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of actual plays. There's probably going to be some interviews. Some of the shows they have is that they're going to have Encounter Party, Faster, Purple Worm, Kill Kill.
Have you heard any information about what these shows will offer aside from the title?
It seems most of them are actual plays.
Okay.
And then of course they're going to be doing the D&D cartoon, which I don't know how many episodes there are, but it's a 24-hour streaming service. So I guess they're going to just play a season a day.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those late night infomercial things where it's every time you turn on the D&D channel, it's going to be that old 80s camp cartoon, which is beloved by a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a little campy, it's a little kitschy, but people love it. And I just think this is a really interesting move because we talked about Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast was trying to consolidate their content with the whole OGL to produce content in-house that they have creative control over and rights to. And
it's very much the walled garden that a lot of people have talked about, where if you want to access our stuff, you have to access on D&D Beyond if you want this, and this feels like another version of that. But they are always talking about how they need to monetize it. This does seem like a way to monetize the brand, and it does seem like they're going to want third party creators to join onto this. So they might get offered hey, we want to give you the 7 to 10 slot on Thursdays. Do you want it? But this also is kind of telling when we hear things about Critical Role's developing its own fantasy-based, long-term tabletop RPG. And does that mean that Critical Role is no longer going to be playing Dungeons & Dragons? They're going to be playing something else. And then does D&D need another massive brand or a media brand to carry their game?
I mean, well, it's a smart move because as we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the show, most big creators in the Dungeons & Dragons space, actual play space, have moved to create their own original RPGs, and that means they're going to abandon playing D&D and they're going to kind of lose that brand ambassadorship. It's a smart thing to kind of lead into reaching out to creators and supporting those creators and creating a space to encourage third-party creators and pay them well and also keep them under your blanket, or the walled garden, as you said, right?
So I'm curious, and is this going to generate anything on the bottom line for WotC? I'm very interested to see, are they going to be, giving cuts to creators that they're bringing on, or is it going to be exposure? Not a lot's been talked about this, but it should be coming out this summer. Yeah. And this is huge because I don't know another brand that has done something akin to this. Yeah. Where there is a 24-hour game channel. Yeah. There's Twitch, there's YouTube, but there's nothing quite like this. So this does feel very interesting because it is a first play in the space. But onto some other news. Talking about, how important an IP is. Yeah. King Kong and Pacific Rim. A Kickstarter that has done fully funded, $30,000 was needed for fully fund in 45 minutes. Yeah. Evil Genius has launching, essentially it's a supplement.
Yeah, so Evil Genius Games, you said that they have, 11 other IPs?
Yeah, they have a bunch. They have The Crow, they have Total Recall, and this all came from Everyday Heroes, which is kind of a take, same folks I think did D20 Modern, which is back in 3.5 edition of D&D, and it was a modern take using the D20 system. And Everyday Heroes is very similar to that in the sense it's a D20 system, but they are pumping out a lot of IP into these games. Yeah. And this is kind of what Modifius does. A few other, tabletop RPG companies do this, but they found a lot of success with, hey, we're going to go and write up the lore, write up some mechanics for this, but you're going to be using the base system that we've already made, and we're applying it and skinning it to this intellectual property.
Yeah, it's a very, malleable base system, it seems like that can really put, like, all you need is your existing IP and you kind of put your stamp on it, which seems like a lot of people that we've talked about in previous weeks have been making the move to get into the tabletop RPG space and kind of, because brand recognition is a really good way to bring new players into the system.
Walking Dead, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Star Trek Adventures, all of these have done really, really well. I'm curious to see, like, how well is it going to do in these got 17 days left. It's already at $100,000.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if there's going to be a lot of runway for more IP and if it's going to have a long shelf life.
Yeah, and it's smart to say kind of like, here, we have like a basic framework that's not going to take a lot of legwork and a lot of, like, you know, grunt work from your brand. Like, we can do it. Here it is. Just bring over that sweet Kong.
And I do believe IP continues to succeed in tabletop RPG because it is a way of fan fiction. Yeah. And so I'm excited to see how it performs, but I'm wondering if we're going to see more IP this year that is licensed out into tabletop RPGs.
I think so, because I think we talked about this when we talked about, like, the Marvel tabletop RPG. Because we were like, everybody, like, thinks that they know the best way and the way that they would like to tell the story that they love deeply in their heart. And it's like, you just give an opportunity to be like, right? How would you like to do it?
Exactly.
Like, well, I've thought about this, actually.
Our last story today is Kobold Press has finally announced that their launch date for Tales of Valiant, their new core fantasy role-playing system.
Congratulations to Kobold Press. Super
I know.
Exciting. It's coming out Tuesday, May 23rd. And as we kind of mentioned earlier, like, this is yet another big creator in the D&D space that is moving to create their original RPG. I think that's like everyone at this point.
And the thing is, it is 5e compatible in the sense that, like, it's going to feel pretty familiar if you've played 5e before. But core fantasy role-playing is their own open system. They're taking, you know, a lot about how the game is taught and how you learn the game, how you GM a game, and they're essentially kind of like rethinking about that from the ground up. Yeah. And when you have, like, a team that has been building so much incredible product year over year, their Kickstarters always do incredibly well. Anyone you talk to will always say, I love Kobold Press. I love how their system works. I love how their monsters work. I love how their spells work. They put thought into it.
Every actual play that I listen to always cites Kobold Press. Like, got inspo from Kobold Press. This build is from Kobold Press. This homebrew came from Kobold Press. Like, they're very creative, very beloved. And I think it's just, like, another interesting incidence of, like, a big creator who has spent years, like, mastering and perfecting, like, the D&D 5e game and, like, learning what is right with it, what is wrong with it, and, like, using that knowledge to build their own system, like, in direct competition with D&D is going to be really interesting for them.
And I think from what I observe, I don't think they're building in competition to D&D as much as they are, like, they're separating themselves, like, we can do this ourselves and we could stand, you know, not on the shoulders of giants, but we can become a giant. Yeah. And I'm incredibly excited to see how this does. I think it's going to do at least $1 million.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Okay.
You know, they have a fantastic design team, and they're kind of like the darling of the industry when it comes to 5e. Yeah. And I think that's going to translate.
It said that they expressed, like, a lot of gratitude for the community, for the sport, and, like, that the community support has been crucial in the development of their, like, largest project to date. Yeah. Yeah. So, incredible. I'm very happy for them. Congratulations, Kobold Press.
Yeah, congratulations, Kobold Press. We'll see you next week to see how your Kickstarter has kicked off. But those are our 3 stories today. Thank you so much for being here. If you like the show and you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/TotalPartyChill. And with that, we'll see you next week. Bye.